Welcome to Lab Life with the Air Force Research Laboratory.
Hi, I'm Michelle.
And I'm Kenneth. Hello, folks. Today we are joined by Dr. Michael Hayduk to discuss the multitude of technologies that come from our Information Directorate and the magic of tomato pie.
In 3, 2, 1.
Dr. Hayduk, welcome to the podcast.
Great. Thanks for having me. And this is a great opportunity.
Yeah. And you're coming to us from Rome, New York. We hear it's a really good place to get some Italian food. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great lead-off question. I'm very passionate about where I live here in the Mohawk Valley in upstate New York, right around the central point of New York State. And exactly, yeah, the Utica Rome area, or Mohawk Valley, as we're often referred to, has so many great restaurants, and Italian food is definitely our thing here. So, yeah, if anyone's ever in town, look me up. Some of the specialties include Utica Riggies, and Utica greens, as well as tomato pie.
Wow, that's not something I've had. So when I get up there, tomato pie, I'm going to try it.
Yeah, see, it's not just regular Italian food. We have our own kind of spin on it up here. So, yeah, it makes for some awesome eating.
Yeah, never heard it called that. So, but I mean, besides, great Italian food, you guys in Rome, you're really at our Information Directorate. You're a powerhouse of technology and innovation. What goes on at your site?
So in Rome, we're the Information Directorate, so one of the 9 technology directorates from across AFRL. And being the Information Directorate, as our name implies, we do all things related to information technology with a focus on what we call C4I and cyber. So the C4I, command, control, computers, communications, the I, intelligence, and of course, cyber. And we call out cyber separately, with the reason being that we have a long and proud heritage in cyber technologies and really being at the forefront of developing cyber and getting into it real early. So it's certainly something we're very proud of. And across those areas, we meet so many customer needs. And one of the things we're so proud of is the fact you mentioned innovation. So we go all the way in terms of pipelines, so very early technologies such as quantum technology, that's something very near and dear to my heart. Things like neuromorphic computing, machine learning, AI. And then we take that all the way up into building capability. So working from 6.1 to 6.2 to 6.3, the different areas of research, or the different codes, as we call it in the Air Force, and then really getting product out to the field. And that's another thing that we're so proud of in Rome. It's not just the innovation and the basic foundational technologies that we work on, but really being able to deliver and transition and support our warfighter just makes our job and what we do in Rome so special. In terms of our people being able to do that, we have about 800 government folks on site, 400 of which are scientists, engineers, and then an amazing support staff of about another 400 people or so, and then about 400 on-site contractors. So notionally, we have about 1,200 people at what we call the Rome Research Site supporting our C4I and cyber work that we do.
A lot going on there, because you mentioned everywhere from 6.1, 6.2, 6.3. So from the basic research to the applied research to the advanced technology development, all happening at your site. To translate a little bit for our listeners, a lot going on.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think one of the things to mention too, I talked about the support to the warfighter. We also partner with a lot of folks out there, and because of that, we receive a lot of outside customer funding. So we average bringing in about $1.8 billion each year. Fluctuates a little bit, but that's something that's steadily grown throughout the years. And again, I think it's a tribute to our workforce and the quality work that they produce, year in and year out. And then being able to continue to bring that innovation and the R&D touch to it. And as you said, going from the basic to the advanced research is what we're all about in Rome.
So with that in mind, you have a very unique position here at Rome. You are the Deputy Director of the Information Directorate, and we kind of wanted to go into what that means, because you get to see a lot of this, really cool technology, this innovation, and these people work together. So can you kind of describe your position and what you do?
Sure. So I started as the Deputy Director Not too long ago, January 2019, and it was a newly created position when we went through a bit of a reorganization. So Colonel Tim Lawrence, is our director and the commander of the Rome research site. He came in a little bit before then, and then we added this position of a civilian deputy director. So I was fortunate enough to start in that position, and I worked very closely with Colonel Lawrence in our front office, and really overseeing what we do, both on the technical side as well as on the support side. And one of the things to really hit upon too is being where we are in Rome, New York. We're at the site of the former Griffith Air Force Base. So the base was closed and realigned back in. So we don't have that base support that other installations are able to provide for the labs and for their tenants. So we have to have our own support services there, and it's really been an amazing journey, I'll say, as this all unfolded throughout the year. So we have a tremendous contracting staff on site, finance staff on site, site support, and our legal staff. So put all those together, it makes for a great team in Rome. And that's really the only reason that we're able to execute so much funding and deliver technologies for the Air Force, for the warfighter, and for our other customers as well.
Well, that's amazing. Like you mentioned, to see really the growth from over like 25 years of helping really make a more robust standalone site. You mentioned that you've had the chance to really see a lot of this growth yourself and kind of see the process.
Yeah, so I actually started out back as an intern in 1990, working in what was the Photonics Center at the time. Really enjoyed what I was doing there. And then came on full time in 1991, came in through what was called the Palace Night program at the time, which was an Air Force educational program for civilians to really look to ultimately increase the number of PhDs within the lab and within the Air Force. So I was fortunate enough to do that. Ended up going on and getting a master's degree at University of Virginia and then a PhD at Cornell University in 1997. And did a lot of, you talk about the growth. I started out as doing a lot of in-house basic research, kind of that, foundational work. I did a lot of work in photonics technologies, electro-optics, how you could really apply the use of light and electronics to solving a lot of the Air Force's problems and really moving information around and being able to process that information. So 16 years or so working bench level scientists, had a great time doing that. And then, moved on to some different parts within the lab, and being able to see that, I ended up moving into the information directorate. In 2007, I became branch chief of the emerging computing technology branch, which was a lot of fun, really a different sort of position for me. So not only did I become a supervisor, but worked on some newer technologies that really wasn't familiar with at the time. And that's where we were able to really start looking at how you can go beyond traditional processing technologies that we're also familiar with, say in our cell phones or laptops or tablets, and going after what are the next great technologies out there. So that's where we were able to start some programs and really getting on what I call the ground floor of things like quantum computing, neuromorphic computing, nano computing, being able to apply nanotechnologies to enhance processing capabilities that are out there. Did that for about 4 years or so, and then really was able to move up and take over the division that branch was in, and became the division chief of our computing and communications division at the lab. So, I've kind of seen it all over nearly 30 years now. It's been certainly a great run. So proud to be not only part of AFRL, but to be part of the Air Force, and seeing what we do every day is so special.
And what an incredible perspective to have. Like you said, you've seen so many different aspects of this, not only the information directorate, but just around Rome itself. And to be able to understand anything from, the culture, the food, to the lab and the work that goes on with the brilliant minds who live there. I mean, there has to be so many cool things and cool stories that you have for the projects you've worked on. And one that really pops out that you mentioned. So for some of our viewers who may not be as familiar, you mentioned that you started off working with the Photonics Center and a lot of different photonics related research. Can you kind of go into what you did there exactly and why that is so important for our lab to kind of invest in and discover?
When I was going through my undergraduate, I really took a liking to fiber optics and lasers, and really just seeing what could be done with it. And that was pretty really rapid growing field at the time, late 80s, early 90s. And I had a unique opportunity to join the Photonics Center, which was part of Rome Laboratory at the time before the Air Force reorganized into AFRL. In that center, at our peak, we had about 50 or so people working on different technologies and how you could apply photonics. And as I mentioned, the use of light and fiber optics, lasers, and electronics to be able to move and process information. So, when you think about the Air Force and all our systems that are out there, our planes, our data that we need to move and really turn, all that data that comes in from sensors and turn it into information, and then ultimately turn it into knowledge that we can provide back to the warfighter and really, make use of. How do we do that? And photonics is just a great way to do it because, not only say the speed of light, but the bandwidth that it could provide. And we were at that time, I was so fortunate to be really at the early time of when it was just starting to take off and so many advances were happening. And in fact, now I take things for granted that there are so many things out there that use photonics in them that, people just don't even really know are out there because it's just so ubiquitous. And specifically worked on a lot of the technologies that move, say, signals that come in from sensors, signals that move in from radars that are, naturally kind of occurring in the analog world. And it gets very tricky to then be able to move that information, preserve that information with a high amount of fidelity. So that was what we worked on, and those were called RF photonics or radio frequency photonics. Very challenging, demanding type problem. We always joke that it was so much easier if we worked in the digital world, the world of ones and zeros, kind of what we do in the information directorate now, but being able to transport and move that information around, process it, is so much easier in the digital world than in the RF or analog world.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, I'm absorbing all this, and I don't even know what are some of those things that photonics and light plays into in my world that I'm probably not understanding. You mentioned those everyday things that we don't even think about.
Sure, I'd love to. So back when we were working on photonics in the 90s, early 1990s, we used to imagine, all right, what would the world look like if this technology became a reality? And it was funny, back then we used to think about things like high definition TV and streaming videos and even what the internet could be. And you think back to that time, that was really when the internet was just starting, just getting kicked off the ground. You had things like Netscape and Mosaic as your web browsers and things that obviously don't even exist nowadays. But things were very slow, and remember the days of dial-up modems. So we really saw that, wow, if any of photonics were ever to become mainstream, that it could really change the world. And in fact, it has. When you think about where the internet is today, all the things that happen on the internet, and in fact, back then we talked about being able to stream videos, and I remember back in the 90s, people were like, well, why, when I can just go down to Blockbuster and get a VHS tape? Why would I want to stream something? Hence nowadays, things like Netflix and all the other streaming services that are out there, all that is powered by a backbone of fiber optics and being able to move signals using light and lasers in those fiber optics. And, because of that, providing that backbone, just being on, what we're so familiar with these days, Zoom calls and WebEx calls and Google Hangouts, all those things are powered by photons, really being able to, use light to move information really fast and create that bandwidth. And so it looks, real time. And also, things we take for granted too is being on Facebook or Twitter and, whatever you put up in post, you can always go back to, right? I say things never go away on the internet. Well, that's because they're stored somewhere in data centers. And there's a lot of photonics technology that occurs there, not only in being able to move things between the different servers and storage units, but you think of the different technologies that are used for storage, all in one way or another, really do relate back to the use of photons. So many ways that it's gone mainstream that we kind of imagined, but really didn't know how pervasive, impactful, and really ubiquitous it would become.
I mean, sure, it sounds like even the basis of you and I and Kenneth talking right now is photonics.
Yeah, there's so much of it. And what's great to see too, you have that fiber optic backbone and being able to move so much data and the bandwidth it provides. But there's other things that are still being worked on that are out there. Things, self-driving cars and all the sensors that are going to be needed in those things like LiDAR systems. Those all use light and integrated photonics. So the technology is still advancing. It's still being pushed. In fact, there's a DoD Manufacturing Institute, one of the several that are out there. It was actually started about 5 years ago. It's the AIM Photonics Center, and it's actually located right here in upstate New York, kind of split between Rochester, New York, and Albany, New York, run by SUNY Polytechnic Institution. And it's just an amazing facility that is worldwide impact and really pushing the development of photonics and be able to integrate them and make them practical so that they can be used in things like cars and cell phones, and it's really getting down to not only having a high bandwidth or that large system throughput, but being able to make them low power and compact, and just merging them with electronics and the CMOS technologies that's out there. And that's just going to continue to revolutionize really the world. So that's something that we're a part of in Rome. AFRL, in fact, is the leader in that. Our partners in the sensors director actually are the DoD lead for that. So they've just done an amazing job with that program. And we're so excited to be a part of it and just see where this continues to go and see how AIM Photonics continues to flourish.
Oh, as I say, I just learned a lot.
And I think that's really amazing too, to kind of put that in perspective, to think about working on photonics with the evolution of the commercial internet and a lot of cool technologies we now, like you mentioned, get to enjoy today. Like, it's incredible to think just how much that research area has impacted us. And speaking along the same lines, there's another area you mentioned while kind of talking about your career, talking a lot about different computing types, from like quantum to nano to neuromorphic. It sounds like there's quite a lot. Can you kind of break into what computing you work on there at Rome and kind of how that impacts even us out here in the normal world?
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. Yeah, definitely an area I'm very passionate about is advanced computing and the different technologies that are out there. So the reason being, people wonder, well, why would you work on different computing technologies? The power you have in cell phones today just keeps advancing. There's all different stories out there. How much more powerful a cell phone is today, even than the most powerful mainframe computers were, and desktop computers just a few years ago, I should say. So the computing technology, the electronics continue to push, but we're really hitting a bottleneck there, and really hitting what's called the end of Moore's law, where you just can't continue to push on, making transistors smaller and increasing the processing power of computer chips. So, we leaned very forward on this in the Air Force, knowing how important processing is to us, and started looking at, these different technologies that could really continue to enhance computing power and, not necessarily replace it, but maybe just enhance it and work with it and be able to push it along and really get to what the Air Force needs. And what we really need by that, if you look at a high level picture and why we do, advanced computing in Rome, it's really to process at the edge. And really, we've kind of evolved that into AI at the edge, or artificial intelligence at the edge. And what I mean by that is you have your signals coming in through your sensors. You have your received signals, lots of data there, lots of things you can do with it. So normally, if we take it in, say, on a plane, we would collect it, we would ship it down through a communication link, it'd go into a large processing center, we'd work on it, turn that data into information, and, as I said before, actionable knowledge, maybe intelligence, and then send that back up and create sort of a feedback loop there. But you might imagine that that's pretty difficult to do, because you have a lot of data coming in. Data is so pervasive, and there's so many sensors out there. There's only great sensors. So really, what do you do with all that data you collect? And one of the things we've seen is, so much data that's collected, it never gets anything done with it just because you can't process it. So we're very much interested in, how you can process that data right on platform, right at the edge, as we call it. So instead of having to ship it down, have those latency delays, time delays, and shipping it down, and then just the bandwidth that it takes to ship it down, it is very challenging. So if we can process the data right at the edge, create information, create knowledge at the edge. It really speeds up the process and it allows us to get at the heart of the problem much quicker. So to do that, you need very small, very powerful computers. And it's, again, getting at that size, weight, and power that we're really looking to optimize so that we can do it. So we look at things like hybrid computing and options for that. And in fact, I'll start out with neuromorphic computing. And neuromorphic computing is something that we started looking at back in about 2009 or so. And this was a partnership with DARPA under their Synapse program. And what neuromorphic computing is it really takes what the human brain does. The human brain is a perfect supercomputer, if you will, in the architecture that provides. When you think about how our brain operates and things we can do with our brain, so we can obviously train it, we remember things, we recall things, we forget things. If part of our brain is injured, it rewires itself. And in fact, obviously, things move very quickly. We're great at recognizing things. So how do you take the architecture of the human brain and put that into a computer? So we certainly don't want to make and recreate the human brain, but just take kind of the architecture, the kind of that basic principle of biology and make a processing architecture out of it. So that's what neuromorphic computing does, kind of in a nutshell, and it's very different than how computer architectures presently operate. So we started investigating that. We worked with DARPA, we worked with IBM. We became an early partner with IBM in their True North chip, which was the first neuromorphic chip that was out there that was commercialized. In fact, we were the first DoD lab to take it outside of IBM and start using it. And it's just continued to grow. We ended up building supercomputers out of it. And in fact, we've done some great demonstrations of how we could use neuromorphic computing tied in with traditional computing, tied in with things like general purpose graphical processing units, GPUs, and really get at that hybrid processing power so that you could do things like not only crunch on large amounts of data, but perform machine learning algorithms on that data and allow you to do things that we weren't able to do before, that you really needed, say, a human to do, that now we can in fact get a computer to do. And certainly not going to replace a human operator, but we can enhance and make the best use of it. And by that I kind of mean there may be an object that's of interest to us, say a car on a highway or a tank hidden somewhere, and your sensor comes in, your algorithms pick out that that's a tank. Well, okay, that could be of interest, and we might want to zoom in on that and just really focus in on that. So computer can tell us that, and then we could go look at it a little closer. So that's where we're going with it. So neuromorphic is one of those technologies. We're also looking at nanotechnology and talked about the neuromorphic computing. Right now, the work we're doing out there is based on traditional CMOS technology, but just architected a different way. But we're also looking at things like memory resistors, other types of technologies that are out there that make the architecture more like the human brain in terms of being able to develop neurons and synapses, really acting kind of like an analog type switch, if you will. And we've been doing that for many years now, work that's gone on across AFRL, not just in the information directorate, but other directorates such as sensors directorate, materials directorate, space vehicles, kind of bringing a team together and then working with partners in fabrication. Yeah, we've actually built a lot of these devices and are pushing them out. In fact, it's been a long-standing partnership. Again, talking about the great capabilities in New York, I talked about AIM Photonics at SUNY Polytechnic Institute, but they also have an amazing capability in fabrication out there. It's over a $20 billion investment. So we leverage that. We have a person on site, Dr. Joe Van Nostrand, who's been there working many years and helped make this technology a reality. And the other technology that we're really excited about and interested in is quantum computing. And it's really harnessing, to me, that's kind of the ultimate step. And that's going down to the very basic building blocks of nature, be it electrons, protons, photons, things like that, and using the properties that then govern those basic building blocks using quantum mechanics. And the world at that scale operates much differently than it operates in the world we're seeing right now and working at. So being able to harness and use quantum mechanics to make computers is something I think that's going to be ultimate when we get there. So we've had very focused effort on that. In fact, we've become real leaders within the DoD. And in fact, AFRL has been recognized, not only what we do in quantum computing, but other parts of quantum as well, what we call quantum information science. So there's the computing piece, there's also the communications piece, there's a timing piece in terms of clocks, and then there's a sensors piece. So bringing all those together is really what our quantum program is. But on the quantum computing side, we don't actually build the quantum computers in Rome or within the Air Force, but there's so much investment out there in industry. So places like Google, IBM, Intel, Rigetti, INQ, there's Honeywell. There's just such a huge push in the commercial world to make quantum computers that what we do is we leverage those computers and those prototypes that are out there. Right now they're called NISQ computers, NISQ, and that stands for noisy intermediate scale quantum computers, and they're on the order of just what we call qubits, few qubits, quantum bits. But what we're doing is we're through the cloud tapping into those computers. We have an amazing partnership with IBM that's been going on a few years now, where we look at how we can take Air Force problem sets, things that are of interest to the Air Force, run them in algorithms on a quantum computer, and what types of results would they return to us. Because the thing about quantum computers and how they operate is so different than traditional computers. So it takes a whole different mindset, whole different way of programming, whole different way of thinking about things. They'll use quantum computers. So when I talk about, really revolutionizing what we do, it's a hard problem because there's not only be able to build a quantum computer because it has to operate in a lot of cases very, very near absolute zero temperatures, but also being able to program it and operate it is so challenging. So that's something we're taking a very long-term view at. As I said, it's part of our quantum strategy, not to actually go out and build the architecture, but work with other partners out there that are building quantum computers.
Yeah, quantum is, I'd say, more than a buzzword right now. I know it's keeping us busy with events and even just the pace of this technology and adoption. I mean, my understanding about quantum computing, I mean, it's the speed and the security of the information that you're processing. Is that the real benefit? Why we're moving towards more quantum?
There's many benefits to it, but certainly, yes, things that we're interested in the Air Force are, of course, being able to protect and secure data, have tamper-evident, tamper-proof communication systems. So things like quantum entanglement, we certainly believe will help us to get there. And that's one of the very unique properties of quantum that get us, could take us to that level. And then, in fact, the other main property of quantum is superposition. I won't go into too many technical details here, but that really allows us to operate on many states at once, if you will. Traditional computing, we think of ones and zeros, either on or off, kind of a one or a zero, as we call it, with bits. Quantum is basically all states at once. So it allows you to take very large problems that may take a supercomputer years to come up with a solution. Quantum computers theoretically could do it much, much quicker, and really we call it kind of an exponential speed up, if you will. We're not there yet. We're a long ways away from it, but certainly worthy of investigating. It's great that we're in such a good position within the Air Force to what we're doing in quantum. You mentioned it's more than a buzzword. In fact, one of my side jobs as the deputy director is to coordinate the quantum research across all of AFRL. So work with 6 of our 9 technical directorates that have programs going on in quantum, all the way from Air Force Office of Scientific Research, work on foundational problems, Dr. Grace Metcalf there. So our other directorates which work on those 4 areas of quantum that I just briefly mentioned before: timing, sensing, communications, and computing. So we have a great team across AFRL, and I'm so honored to lead it. And as you said, we've had a lot of events in the past. We have more events coming up, not too far down the line. In fact, in a couple weeks, so is our next big event, which we're calling the $1 million International Quantum U Tech Accelerator, where we've solicited papers from across the world, from leading universities who have interest in quantum, and looking at how that could be applied to Air Force problems down the line. But really, just seeing what maybe new things that are out there that we haven't thought about or haven't looked at before in terms of partnerships. So we received, in fact, 243 white papers from 29 countries, different countries. We went through a down select process. And then, in fact, at the event, which is going to happen 1st through the 3rd of September, virtual event, of course, the top 36 of those papers, the university professors will be what we call pitch them, and they'll present their ideas to panels of judges. And coming out of that, we expect to award about 18 or so of those pitches to select them, and then they'll be eligible for a grant from the Air Force Office of Scientific Research, a 1-year grant, and those winners will receive a $75,000 grant to further look at those ideas. And, if successful in that first year, there's a good chance that it could turn into something more long-term. So something pretty unique. Again, innovation. I think that's what we're all about in Rome. It's what Air Force Research Lab is all about. And we take great pride in Rome to kind of the different spin we put on things. And certainly this event is one of them. And I should note too, this ties in really well with the opening of, speaking of innovation, of our Innovare Advancement Center. So we have what's a great partnership between the Information Directorate in Rome, New York State, the county we sit in, which is Oneida County, City of Rome, and the SUNY system to start this center. And it's off campus, so it's just outside the proper location of the Information Directorate, so outside our security perimeter, but it's a brand new 40,000 square foot facility in renovated space that was part of Griffiths Air Force Base before. That's really going to look at foundational research and bringing in new partners for us. So we have a great team at AFRL, but we do our best work by partnering with others, of course. So going after the best minds that are out there, whether it's in industry, academia, small businesses, or even internationally. So, creating mechanisms to be able to work and effectively partner with those folks and create these new partnerships is what Innovare is all about. And I know it's a pretty unique name. It actually has Latin roots stemming from innovation, but we think it's perfect. And having those Latin roots and being in Rome, New York, we think it's just an absolutely perfect name, and it's going to be great. It's a 3-floor center. Will be opening up very soon. It, I think, is really going to push on, those foundational technologies, and specifically things that we're going to be looking at, cut across that whole C4I and cyber area. But at the foundational level, things like quantum computing, quantum networking, artificial intelligence, machine learning, cyber technologies, and unmanned aerial systems are really the things that are going to be looked at and worked in partnership. So if folks are interested in learning more about it, there's a great website that's set up. So it's innovare.org, and you can learn more about it and really how you can partner with us. We really look forward to kicking off the center, and this event is going to be one way in which we're doing it.
It's very exciting to have the Open Innovation Campus as part of AFRL's ecosystem. And we've kept you for a while now, so I would be remiss if I didn't get to talk and ask you about my favorite technology out of the Information Directorate, which is probably ATAC, because I just get to hear all the cool, amazing stuff that ATAC does. Could you tell us what ATAC even means?
Sure, I'd love to. So ATAC is a system that really runs on based on cell phone technology, cell phone platforms, and it's situational awareness software. It's an app that provides blue force tracking, so friendly force tracking, and it provides all sorts of different capabilities, the Air Force to the DoD, and in fact, it's transitioned to different civilian uses. So many cases we can go into, but the fact that it's on your cell phone makes it easy. It really goes after what we call digitizing the Air Force or the digital Air Force. But I talk about, being able to know where you are. So you can really think of it as folks are, of course, very familiar with map technology on their cell phones and GPS tracking. But what this does is it allows you to know not only, of course, where you are, but other people that you would consider your friendly forces, where they're located as well. So you can think of special operations, where you need to know exactly where all your people are relative to one another. You can think about, when you hear some noise or something in the distance, is that friendly person or is it a foe? Is it an enemy? So bringing all those technologies together are just what it does. Like I said, it sits on your cell phone. We've used it all over the place within the Air Force. Many, many users, many licenses that are out there. It actually has civilian uses as well. We can think about things like hurricane relief that it's been used in. Unfortunately, when there have been hurricanes out there, we've sent our folks down as part of relief efforts, and it's been able to help to rescue people, to know where we have rescuers, and if there's someone out there that needs help, we can go help the person, find the person, bring them back into safety. Been used presidential inaugurations, coordinating security forces, papal visits, things like that, all sorts of uses that one might imagine ATAC gets used at. And just, some of the stats are just staggering. We have close to 100 licenses that are out there right now with small business, other users. The number of users continues to grow. We're well over 100,000 users. There's over 20 unique plugins or apps that go along with ATAC. And one of the things too is, it's not just the Air Force that uses it within the federal government. There's over 40 federal agencies that use it. There's 6 programs of record that use it as well. So it's just been so pervasive. So the civilian version of it as well, I talked about how it can be used different ways. So I think each and every day folks are just thinking of different ways to use ATAC. It's always surprising when you hear it mentioned and how it just kind of pops up. But civilian version that's available. In fact, you can go on TACmaps.com, TAKMAPS, and it has that civilian version that people can be able to download. There's been over 50,000 downloads so far, and we see this just is continuing to grow, and just people taking it, running with it, and ultimately it then allows us to make the product better as well. So just been, again, a tribute to the innovation that we do in Rome, thinking creatively and coming up with such unique solutions. And I think that's what we're all about in Rome in the Information Directorate.
Absolutely. And I think that's why I like ATAC so much. It's Android Team Awareness Kit, but I get to hear and help amplify stories about, the U.S. Coast Guard using it to save some 46 ice fishermen that, broke off a chunk of ice, just stuff like that every day, let alone, I know there's real world combat zone applications. I probably don't get to hear about those stories, but knowing that it's helping our war fighters, and then it's already transitioning into this other things that I, as a civilian, help keep me safe. Or if I was in the middle of a hurricane and you have first responders trying to provide aid, know what that dynamic environment is. Obviously, trees and buildings across roads and power lines down, just to have that communication to help keep teams safe and then help others is really amazing. That's one of my favorites, from just like a heartwarming, hey, scientists, engineers solving the world's problems. It's really cool.
Yeah, and it's so neat when our folks get called in or get a call for, maybe a unique situation, unique rescue, unique application that's out there. And you can, in fact, think about just law enforcement agencies using it as well. There was a situation, or as a prison break a few years back, pretty high profile, and just different law enforcement agencies came in and, not always knowing who's who and where they are, but you put that application in their phones. And then, in fact, they know that when they hear people around and knowing who it is, that might be a state trooper or sheriff versus the actual prisoner. And it just helped in the search, and just amazing. And so many great stories out there in terms of search and rescue that we could spend hours on talking about. So it just warms our hearts at the lab, seeing, there's so many applications of it and being used throughout the world now, literally.
And that just goes to show how far-reaching Rome's technologies can go. Again, from helping save people during a crisis, or helping track people down, or keep people safe during events. It's amazing to think that's one part of the Rome narrative, which we've covered a lot today. So one thing we'd love to ask our viewers as we kind of round things out, is there any other pieces of technology, whether it be from Rome or from when you were going through a lot of your stages of learning through university, that really inspired you to really help in your engineering career, or specific researchers that you loved?
I talked about the photonics technology, and now moving into advanced computing and quantum technology. I think I've been so fortunate to continue to be a lifelong learner. But I think it always comes back to the people that inspire you and get you excited about the work you do, and been blessed to be around so many great leaders, not only technology leaders, but just great people leaders within AFRL. And I can think, I can talk all day about this, but really my current boss, if you will, Colonel Tim Lawrence, he has just a great story, fascinating story, but he inspires me every day, and just a great person to not only work for or work with, but to be around. Then I think back to someone like Ray Earth. He really inspired me. Ray was the first director of the Information Directorate. He was a civilian. And in fact, Ray was the one who hired me and convinced me to stay in Rome, to have a career in Rome. And I'll be forever thankful for that. And what Ray did I talked about the base shutting down in 1995. Ray was really the person, the top civilian who led that transition, who was able to make it a reality and show that the information director could stand on its own, and it could not only stand on its own, but be stronger than ever. And that growth that we've seen and all this funding that we receive, all these technologies, Ray was the visionary behind that. And think back to us getting into cyber technology and continuing to grow the C4I area and all these different technologies. It's the credit to Ray and his vision that he brought and the inspiration that he brought.
That is so inspiring, and what a note to end things on. So thank you so much for meeting with us today and really giving our viewers an idea of not only what Rome does, but how they're changing the world.
Thanks for having me. This is great. And folks ever want to learn more or visit us, just give us a shout.
Yeah, we're going to get some of that tomato pie next time we're there.
Absolutely.
All right. Awesome. Sounds good. Can't wait.
Make sure to follow us on social media at Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube at AF Research Lab. And remember, stay curious.
Logging off.